The molecules that we've learned about, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, are all molecules that help to provide our body with energy. There are other components to the foods that we eat, such as vitamins, minerals, and sodium. However, these do not provide our body with energy. They provide it with nutrients, but not energy. And when we talk about energy, what we're talking about is calories. And calories is a way that we measure the amount of energy that is provided to us. Now, the calories that are labeled on a food ingredient label are actually capital C calories. This is 1 kilocalorie or 1,000 lowercase c calories. So these are what we use in science to measure energy. If it's a lowercase c, if it's a capital C, that is the calorie from food. And the reason that a capital C or a kilocalorie is labeled on food is because it makes us feel better when we have a cookie that is 150 calories instead of saying it is 150,000 calories, lowercase c calories. Okay. But if we think about that capital C calorie, that's the amount of energy that it takes to heat up a kilogram or 1 liter of water 1 degree Celsius. So if we look at fat, 1 gram of fat in food provides 9 calories of energy. If we look at 1 gram of protein in our food, that gives us 4 calories, capital C calories, and 1 gram of carbohydrate gives us 4 capital C calories. So sometimes this is referred to as the 9-4-4 rule. Okay, 9 calories from 1 gram of fat, 4 calories from 1 gram of protein, 4 calories from 1 gram of carbohydrate. And this allows us to calculate the amount of energy in our food. So if we look at a food label, we can figure out how much calories, and we can figure out if they add up. So if we look at our label and we look at the fat, so 17 grams of fat from the food, if we multiply that by 9 calories, that gives us 153 calories from the fat. Okay. If we look at our carbohydrates, there are 7 grams of carbohydrates. If we multiply by 4 calories per gram, that gives us 28 calories. And if we look at our protein, 5 grams of protein times 4 calories, that gives us 20. So if we add all of those together, we end up with 201 calories. So on food, the labels tend to be rounded. So to the nearest 5 calories. So if we have 201 calories from the grams, quite frequently you'll see it labeled as 200 calories. Okay, so it does tell us we have 17 grams of fat. However, it says that there's only 2.5 grams of saturated fat and 0 grams of trans fat. So where are the other 14.5 grams? Well, the other 14.5 grams are unsaturated fat. So we're required to include the saturated fat and the trans fat on the label. Unsaturated fat is not required, but we can calculate it from the total fat minus the saturated and trans fats. So our body, the way that it uses the calories and produces the energy is through combustion reactions. We're going to look at the example where our fuel is glucose. Okay, remember that our combustion reactions are composed of a fuel source. So in the past we've looked at hydrocarbons and oxygen. So O2. So we have to put oxygen into our reaction. Okay? Because this reaction is happening in our body and there is no fire involved, okay, we call this particular type of combustion reaction where we're converting food into energy, we call this respiration. And so that's part of the reason why we breathe in oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. So our body needs the oxygen in order to react with our food sources, okay, in this case glucose. And then once the reaction has happened, there's excess carbon dioxide that needs to be exhaled back into the environment. We also get water and energy. Okay? So this is very similar to the combustion reactions we've seen before, where we had a fuel source plus oxygen giving us carbon dioxide and water. And again, this is called respiration when it happens within our body. Okay? If we look at photosynthesis, photosynthesis is the opposite process of respiration. Okay? In this case, plants are using energy from the sun. They use carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Okay, so they're taking carbon dioxide and water that they use to grow, and they are producing glucose, and they give off oxygen. Okay, so this is the opposite of respiration that we just looked at. Okay, so we use that glucose and oxygen to give ourselves energy. Plants, on the other hand, through photosynthesis, they take energy from the sun, carbon dioxide and water from the atmosphere, and they produce glucose in their cells. So, by looking at this chapter, you should be able to identify some common functional groups, recognize the differences between fats, oils, proteins, and carbohydrates, know the difference between proteins, amino acids, and essential amino acids, calculate calories based on a food label using grams of fat, carbohydrates, and proteins, and understand the similarities and differences between combustion, respiration, and photosynthesis.